Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins. I'm joined as always by Brandon Scott. You know him as B. Scott, and the preseason of the NFL is finally behind us, which means it is finally time to look ahead at the 2023 NFL season, and that's what we're going to do. The final of our many previews for the football season finally gets underway as we give you our preview of the NFL season. We're going to be talking about the most intriguing divisions. We're going to be talking about an outlook for all 32 teams as we dive into that a little bit later. We're also going to, of course, preview Super Bowl LVIII, give our takes on who we think is going to be hoisting the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, you know, our last of our mini previews, we previewed the high school season, we previewed the college season, we gave you a Colts preview, and now we want to kind of tie a bow on it and talk about the NFL, because it should shape up to be a pretty fun year. Yes, there are the favorites, but I don't go into the year being 100% confident really in this is definitely going to be the champion when the dust is settled.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. I mean, are we going to I think, the Kansas City Chiefs obviously are should be the front runners, but are we all on board with the Jets, Jets, Jets? I don't know.
I saw a TikTok now obviously it's just the preseason, but I saw a TikTok of Aaron Rodgers' lone preseason possession. I think it was the other day against the Giants, and he threw 2 incompletions and ran for 4 yards, and that was it. And they're like, I'm putting in my futures bet. The Jets are going all the way this year. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was very surprised about when I was, doing the digging on this podcast was that, I'm surprised. I knew, the Lions would be kind of the sentimental favorites for a lot of stuff going into the year, but I'm surprised just how high everyone is on the Lions. I think they'll be good.
Yeah.
But I was just very surprised that, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, far and away they're the favorites for the North. I know that the Vikings kind of had a fluky season, but I also think the Vikings are still going to be good. I still think the Vikings should be the favorites for that division. But yeah,
I'm not ready to say the Bears aren't up there.
Right.
I mean, that division is it's wide open. I think the only team you can say that's not going to win it is probably the Packers.
Right. And even then, I mean, there's an argument to be made for the Packers.
Know.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, why don't we go ahead and get things kicked off here? The season itself kicks off a week from Thursday on September 7th. It's the Lions at the Chiefs. Then the rest of the league gets going on September 10th. You have the Cowboys and Giants as your first Sunday night game, and then the Bills and Jets are your first Monday night game. First things first, B. Scott, do you miss the doubleheader Monday night for the first Monday night of the year? Because I kind of do. I kind of wish there was.
It got too late. I'm old though. You got to remember that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a good point, because this was back when I used to love it. Was back in the days where I was working 11 to 8 at my job, so I could stay up later and watch. I would get home, about the end of the first quarter of the first game, and I could watch the rest of the way through. But
now I've got kids now, and my son is like a rooster. He wakes up when the sun comes up and is making sure everybody else is awake with him. So no, I can't be staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning watching a Monday night football game between the Falcons and the Saints, or whoever they're going to try to throw in there, or the 40 or let's say the Rams and the Seahawks, and you're just yeah, that should have been a good matchup, but no, not anymore. And yeah, it packed too much for me.
Yeah,
Monday. If you wanted to do a doubleheader, let's do a doubleheader on Sunday night, or do a doubleheader on the Thursday night, especially now with Amazon's dual cast that they're doing, with one of the broadcasts having more AI features that are showing plays as they unfold, different things like that. I think, try that. But the double Monday night, it was too much.
Yeah. You said rooster, and it gave me PTSD. When I used to work 7 to 4, when I would walk out of my house at 6:30, there would always be every day clockwork. There would be a rooster that would is it crow, call? What do you? And
I don't know.
or
Yeah,
what
with
it
the
do
Rooster
it,
Crows. It's with
yeah,
the Rooster Crows.
right. And I would just be like, you son of a gun. Why do you always got to
But it's a
remind me how
myth.
early it is?
Roosters crow all the time.
Right.
My sister's neighbor has a rooster, and we were up there at her house, and it was just going off all the time. It's not just when the sun rises.
Right. So, one of the things I wanted to do today as we get into our preview here is, let's give our divisional, let's kind of break down the divisions a little bit. We're going to talk about first which division is the most intriguing. We're going to go AFC and NFC. In the AFC, for me, the most intriguing division is the AFC North. I know a lot of people might say the East, but according to FoxSports.com and their over-unders they had on their site, the AFC North has 3 teams projected with 9+ wins. The Bengals are projected at 11.5. The Ravens are projected at 10.5. The Browns are projected at 9.5. Plus, the Steelers have impressed this preseason quite a bit. A lot of people are in on the Steelers.
George Pickens and Kenny Pickett. That's
Right.
going to be a heck of a tandem.
Pickett to Pickens. I like that. That sounds like a knockoff of Leave It to Beaver, kind of the way you say that name.
The law offices of Pickett.
Yeah. The AFC, as far as the other divisions, the AFC East, North, and West are all projected to be good. Like, those are all going to be very entertaining, competitive divisions. But I think the North is the division I have the least confidence in picking. I mean, the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West. I'm most confident in them, although, I know the Chargers and Broncos are intriguing. Offensive coordinator Kellen Moore goes to L.A. You have Sean Payton, of course, in his first year in Denver. And then while the Jets are the sexy pick in the AFC East, they were 7-10 last season with all the quarterback turmoil, and so I think they can easily flip that and be 10-7. I still think the East is the Bills' division to lose, but when I look at the North, it's kind of a toss-up to me between the Bengals and the Ravens. Like, it's probably going to be the Bengals again, but I do like the addition of OBJ to Baltimore. Plus, I think the Browns and Steelers are going to be in the mix. Like, there's a lot more to kind of talk yourself into with the AFC North, and they're the only division in the AFC, in my opinion, where you can say any team realistically has a shot at winning that division. You can make the case for Pittsburgh, you can make the case for the Browns, you can make the case obviously for Baltimore and Cincinnati. So I think that to me is the most intriguing division just because of all the storylines there.
Yeah, you're right. As far as battles go, that is the most intriguing division right now. But I'm looking at the AFC East is intriguing in the fact that I think it's about time that we put the Buffalo Bills as a Super Bowl contender to bed. I don't think the Bills are going to be as good this year as they have been in the past. They have their issues, and particularly in the running game. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that division plays out because of the media circus surrounding the New York Jets and all the hype, and how quickly that could either explode to greater levels or completely come crashing down and really kind of ruin their entire season real quick. The other AFC division is going to be, this is interesting, but to me that's intriguing, is honestly the AFC South. The AFC South has 2 teams breaking in rookie quarterbacks, in the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud and the Indianapolis Colts with Anthony Richardson. And you got the Titans, who are trying to come back to that level that we saw them at, where they were on the doorstep of making it to the Super Bowl. What kind of season are we going to get out of Derrick Henry? What's Will? You got the backup quarterback situation in Tennessee as well with brewing. It's kind of, there's just some intriguing storylines there, and can Jacksonville maintain their dominance that they've had the past couple of years, or can they take that next step? So it is kind of an intriguing division because of the disparity almost between the top and the bottom. But at the same time, that disparity could disappear if inputting these rookie quarterbacks ends up working out for the Texans and the Colts. So you just don't know what you're going to get. You got the Colts with a new head coach. It's just intriguing. There's just it's not going to be the coming down at the end of the season, who's going to win the division, could three teams from this division make the playoffs? That's not that drama's not going to happen here. But just the QB battles, the unknowns of certain players and everything. I'm interested in watching all of that unfold.
I do like how, because really, like, when you think about it, there's storylines and excitement with every single division, even across both conferences, because I think the amount of good teams, or at least playoff caliber teams in the AFC, is really incredible across 4 divisions. Yeah, you're right. The AFC South is probably the only division, and maybe kind of the AFC West, where you can pretty much bank on there's not going to be 3 teams, or 4 teams make the playoffs from that division. But like, you can talk yourself into the AFC East, because like, even
the Dolphins,
Dolphins, the Patriots could bounce back.
Maybe
not. I'm just saying
the Patriots today released all but one quarterback.
Oh, well,
they released everybody but Mac Jones in that quarterback room. So if Mac Jones goes down, they released all of their backup quarterbacks. The only quarterback they have on their roster as of Tuesday night is Mac Jones. I mean, will that change? Yeah, that's definitely going to change. Yeah, Mac Jones is the only quarterback in that QB room.
Interesting. That's all right. Well, that's definitely an interesting move for sure. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good teams on the AFC side, and then in the NFC, it's kind of more intriguing, because you kind of wonder in some of those divisions who's going to step up. Either who's going to step up besides the team we already know is going to probably win, and also who's going to step up, just in general. So let's go ahead and talk about the NFC a little bit here. And I'm going to also go with the North from that conference as well. The NFC North is the most intriguing for me. Yes, the East could potentially have 3 playoff teams again with the Eagles, Giants, and Cowboys. But I say the NFC North because you can make the case for all 4 teams winning the division crown. Of course, the Vikings won it last year. They're going to be in the mix again. The Lions were right there last season. I mean, they were right on the cusp. If the Seahawks game goes differently last year, they play their way in. They'll be strong again. The Lions over under win total is the highest of the teams in the NFC North. They're projected to get around 9 to 10 wins. And then you have the Bears and the Packers, who have solid upside. I mean, Jordan Love could break out and be the guy in Green Bay. You never know. Justin Fields could make another leap and take another step forward with the Chicago Bears. So yeah, the East is better, has better teams overall. But the division being up for grabs after a long period of Packers dominance, because I get it. The Vikings won it last year with Aaron Rodgers still in Green Bay, and there have been years where Aaron Rodgers didn't get it done. It's been the Bears or the Vikings. But I mean, it seems like every year you could kind of pencil in, okay, the Packers are going to win the NFC North, and this is the first time in what feels like forever that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, so I mean, that division it's going to be interesting one to watch, because it's wide open. You can't really say, and I think that's a big reason why everybody's so high right now on the Detroit Lions, is that on paper they look to be the most consistent. So we'll see there. But for me, I'm okay. Everybody's probably going to laugh when they hear this, but I'm really intrigued in watching the NFC West. I mean, this is a division that's got probably one of the best teams in the NFC in the 49ers, and probably one of the worst teams in the entire league in the Arizona Cardinals. It's going to be interesting to watch this division, especially with the fact that the Cardinals are tanking without saying they're tanking. I mean, you cut your starting quarterback is on the physically unable to perform list to start the season, and you cut your most experienced quarterback on your roster. Tell me you're tanking without telling me you're tanking is essentially what we're seeing with the Arizona Cardinals. And it's going to be interesting as the season unfolds, what kind of moves they make to make sure that they have the number 1 overall pick, and what the NFL does about it, because it's becoming pretty blatant that they are tanking. And then to see how they handle having the number 1 overall pick, because you got Kyler Murray on the roster. Is that not your guy? Are you going with Caleb Williams? I mean, it's going to be a fun division, because then in the middle of the pack there, you have the Rams and the Seahawks. That the Rams, who knows what team we're going to get out of them? Is it going to be the team that was injury riddled and not so good? Or is it the team that is going to make a run back to the Super Bowl? You just don't know. And then the Seahawks are right there as well in the middle of the pack, that could play spoilers at some point. They're not good enough to make a run to the Super Bowl, but they're good enough to make sure somebody else misses out on the wild card, or also could potentially play spoilers to the Cardinals having a perfect winless record. I mean, you don't know. So that's why that division is so intriguing to me, because of the wide range of disparity from top to bottom, but then the in-betweeners that you could see them go either direction at the same time. So I'm intrigued to watch that division. Also because, look, the 49ers just have an exciting team as well. That defense is always fun to watch. And the fact that they're led by Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, it's even more intriguing. So I enjoy watching NFC West games.
Yeah, it's wild because it's wild to think that just a few short years ago that we were talking about this division as being the best division in football. There, it could potentially get 4 teams into the playoffs, and now it's it's just completely gone off the rails. Yeah, I wanted so bad to say the Rams are going to have a bounce back year, but the more I look at their roster and what they're kind of dealing with, I'm not super sold on them. We'll see what they can do. The Seahawks are going to be interesting. Was last year what they're going to be with Geno Smith, or is it going to kind of come back down to earth a little bit? So those are some interesting storylines to follow. When you said everyone's going to laugh, I thought you were going to say the NFC South, which is intriguing from the sense that someone has to win that division.
But the thing is, that's the same story every year.
Right.
It used to be we'd have like 2 teams that were contending for that. It's always the Saints and the Falcons, and it was a really good battle.
Well, even for a while, you had the Saints, the Falcons, and then you had Drew Brees with the Saints, you had Cam Newton on the Panthers, and you had Matt Ryan on the Falcons. Back when Matt Ryan was like in those years that they were the Super Bowl caliber, and even the year or two after the Super Bowl collapse, like they were there, and so like. It was really only the Buccaneers with Jameis not underperforming, and yeah, that division.
Jameis is still in the division.
He is with the Saints. So, but yeah, it's that one's gone. It wasn't quite as deep as the NFC West was, but it also has kind of gone downhill. Since its heyday a few years ago. So, one other exercise I thought would be fun before we kind of get into our like NFL tier list type scenario is. I thought it'd be fun to go have a head-to-head discussion, a divisional debate on the conferences that play each other in the interconference play. So, like, for instance, the AFC East plays the NFC East. Which division is better? AFC North versus NFC West, and on down the line. So, the first matchup interconference this year, the AFC East plays the NFC East. And when you go team by team, because these two divisions are pretty similar, you've got the Bills and the Eagles. In my opinion, those are your Super Bowl contenders from each division. I know I'm interested to see what happens with our tier list discussion because I know you're not as high on the Bills as I am. You have the Jets and Cowboys, who are their biggest challengers. You have the Giants and Dolphins, who will be in the mix for the postseason. They'll be there. And then when you look at the teams that are at the moment look to be the weakest in the division. I know, even with the news that you told me a little bit earlier, I still think I lean Patriots over Commanders. I still lean Bill Belichick over, what the Commanders have. Because I think I'll take Mac Jones.
Who's the Commanders starting quarterback?
Sam Howell right now, as far as when I looked at the depth chart on ESPN. So I'm sure if someone that's on the Washington Commanders Reddit who wants to come in our comment section and say someone else is starting, so be it. But according to ESPN, it's Sam Howell. So it's I still think I take New England over Washington there. So
because New England cutting their backup quarterbacks,
that doesn't really matter.
That has nothing to say what their final record's going to be. It's just they don't trust their backup quarterbacks for if Mac Jones goes down, so they want to go in a different direction.
Yeah,
that's all that means. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
trust.
AFC East. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think they're
I'm
the
going
better division.
AFC East as well on this one. I mean, I don't, well, top to bottom, man, I'm going to say different. I'm going to go NFC East just because of the Cowboys and the Eagles. I think those are the two teams that put this matchup over the edge. The Eagles, honestly, I think the Eagles and the Chiefs. There's three teams that are tiered in my mind that have the chance to win the Super Bowl, and the Eagles are one of those. That team's just going to get better and better, and the weapons that they added, and yeah, that dominance kind of puts me over the edge for the NFC East a bit more, and just kind of the intrigue with what the Dallas Cowboys are going to look like this year. I think that helps as well. And I'm not as confident in the Patriots. I kind of feel like things are starting to go off the rails a little bit internally there. It just feels like that is about to come crashing down completely, and that they will be picking in the top 10 of the draft at some point in the near future.
It is a possibility for sure. Because it's just kind of hard to make sense of it because you don't want to think about them as not being, in the mix. But yeah, it's definitely been trending
Well,
that
it's
way.
it's intriguing. It's interesting because Bill Belichick is not just their head coach; he's their GM
Mm-hmm.
as well. So he doesn't have to answer to anybody but Robert Kraft, and he's built up so much rapport because of how many Super Bowls he's won that it puts the Patriots in such a weird position that even if they're not winning, how do you get rid of fire your head coach that's also your GM that's meant so much to the franchise? And it's a weird component that is going to have to be met eventually, and it's kind of one of those things that I think the higher ups hope that someday he just retires,
Mm-hmm.
because their plan B, their coach in waiting, is no longer there. So what do you do? So yeah, that team is just interesting. They have talent, but I just believe the internal turmoil that is kind of starting to leak out um, could damper their expectations this year.
Moving on, we've got the AFC North versus the NFC West. And this is easily the AFC North for me. Easy one here. Talked about how deep the North is earlier, whereas the NFC West is the 49ers and everyone else as far as the, good playoff caliber, like teams you feel confident going into the postseason. The Rams and Seahawks, as you mentioned, are huge question marks, and Arizona will likely be drafting towards the top again. It's easily the AFC North. That's the better of the two divisions.
Yeah, AFC North, that's easy. I mean, you got the Bengals, you got the Ravens, the Steelers, and honestly, I am expecting kind of some big things out of the Steelers this year. I think they've got something going there. So easy one. Move on.
The AFC South versus the NFC South. And I'm going to take the AFC South here. I think the Jaguars and the Titans are both better than any of the teams in the NFC South. I think, you drop, either of those two teams in the NFC South, they win it hands down. 8-9 won the NFC South last season, and I don't even know who would probably be the favorite right now. I'm sure, technically it's probably the Saints. Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably the Saints, but like off the top of my head, like for most of the other divisions, you can be like, okay, this team's probably the favorite. This team's probably the favorite. Like I was like, who is technically favored in the NFC South? Because I don't know who really is. But yeah, you're probably right. It's the Saints. But I think if you put the Colts and Texans in the NFC South, they would even have a shot at winning the division. This year, you could. I mean, if the Colts were in the NFC South, I think we would have been talking last week about like, oh, I mean, if they can win here and win here, like they could have a shot at winning that division with 8 wins or 7 wins. So, it's definitely a weaker division for sure, and I think the top of the AFC South far outweighs the top of the NFC South.
I agree. It's definitely the AFC South. But then the question that comes to my mind, what chances do you think we see every AFC South team go undefeated against each NFC South team? Do you think that's possible?
That is a tough one. I don't know.
I don't think it's possible. Because
No.
even when we were talking about the Colts last week, I had them losing
I think the
to
Colts
a
and
few of those
Texans.
teams.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think the Colts and Texans will both struggle against the NFC South, as far as just like like you, I had the Colts losing to the Saints. I had them losing to the Panthers. I do think they beat the Falcons. I do think. I mean, there's a good chance. I think the Jaguars would be the team with the best chance of sweeping.
Oh, yeah. Even I would
'Cause
even say maybe Tennessee.
Tennessee would definitely have the second best chance, but I still think they would slip up. Because Tennessee also is very much a team that, I mean, not to say the Jaguars aren't this way, but the Titans are very much a team that will go and beat, they'll go beat the Saints, 40-21, and they're a team that could then go on the road and lose. I don't know if they do play on the road against Carolina, but they could go on the road at Carolina and lose 21-13. They have those weeks where they just don't show up, and that's the problem you have with them.
And the thing also with the Titans is that they are a team that's really one injury away from being one of the bottom teams in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Final divisional debacle here is the AFC West versus the NFC North. And actually, I don't know where you're going here, but I do like that you picked the NFC East earlier because I felt really bad. I don't want to pick AFC across the board. I really wanted to go against the grain and pick at least one NFC division in my half of the exercise. So I kind of took a very roundabout way in looking at how I wanted to break these divisions. So first things first, let's exclude the Chiefs for a minute because we know they're the best team of the eight teams. They're the best. They're the best. And I guess to do that exercise, we need to remove the Bears as well because that's the team that, according to Fox Sports, their over-unders was in the NFL.com preseason rankings is the team set to be the worst in the NFC North. I don't think they will be, but that's the team that they kind of said. So taking the middle six teams, that's what I did basically to compare these two divisions because it's kind of a apples and oranges things because the top of the division, the best team of those eight is potentially winning their third Super Bowl in 4 years, and the bottom is like a good year would be in the playoff mix. So yeah, I was like, if we exclude those two teams and take the middle six, so I looked at the Chargers and the Lions. They're on pretty equal footing, both projected to be in the 9-10 win range. But I do lean LA with a better quarterback than Detroit has, and with offensive coordinator Kellen Moore in the building. I think that's really intriguing. So I do lean Chargers there. We think the Vikings will regress, but we hope the Broncos will be better. I think they're going to be two teams that kind of meet in the middle of what they did last season. I did see a Reddit post that showed each NFL team's record if one-score games were flipped. The Broncos would be 10-7. The Vikings, who won a record amount of one-score games last season, would be 4-13. Even so, I do think I lean more Vikings here. I still think the Vikings are the better of the two teams between them and the Broncos. So for me, it comes down between the Raiders and the Packers to determine which of these two divisions is the best. And Josh Jacobs, he ended his holdout. I don't see the Raiders being all that different than they were last season because Jimmy G, it's not like it's a big drop off or big gain by getting Jimmy G, as opposed to Derek Carr.
Big game Aiden. Aiden.
True. There. Yes, Aiden O'Connell has impressed.
And who's also a part owner of that team now.
Tom Brady. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the flip side, the Packers were 8-9 with Aaron Rodgers last season. And I would imagine the first season of Jordan Love, there will be some lumps and some growing pains. So in other words, this is a long way to say, I think I'm still picking the AFC West. I really wanted to say, that was the right answer all along. I really want to go NFC North, especially because of all the love I gave them earlier. But the AFC West is just better.
Oh yeah, I'm going AFC West as well. The Chiefs are the best of the best. Almost in a tier of their own. And then you look, there's even the top tier of the NFC North, it's the AFC West. Even because when you compare them side to side, like you just did, and with the rundown of the order. I mean, the Raiders, I'm a little bit higher on the Raiders, because of their quarterback situation. Then the Chargers, I think the Chargers are a team that's going to take a step forward. Jake Herbert is probably is in the upper tier of quarterbacks, in my opinion, in the NFL. And then the Broncos, I think, are definitely taking a step forward with the hiring of Sean Payton as head coach. Anytime you pair Sean Payton with a really good quarterback, good things happen pretty quick. And with him and Russell Wilson, I could see that team not being a doormat, or kind of like they were last year, or a joke. So yeah, I think it's the AFC West. Give me them.
Who's the quarterback for the Chargers?
Jake Herbert.
Justin Herbert.
I know a Jake Herbert.
Yeah. No,
Justin
but
Herbert.
Yes. Who I didn't know if he would be any good coming out of college, so I was hoping the Colts wouldn't pick him, and now I kind of wish that he did. He's been really good.
But he's also had really good weapons around him as well.
That's also true. But I mean, we talk about this divisional breakdown, and it's like, the AFC is just a better conference of the two right now. I know that that's not really breaking news, but it's just like, 'cause you look at the one side and it's like, well, 12 to 13 teams you could, talk into, you could say have a chance to make the postseason, could have a good year, make it. And the same can be true about the NFC, but that's just because it's not as top heavy. It's just kind of, everybody is just kind of there. So yeah, it's gonna be, I think the AFC wins out. It'll be interesting to track like the records in those interconference matchups and see like which conference ends up winning those.
And this is why I wish the NFL did an all-star game similar to the MLB, where it actually mattered, because then we could put this argument to rest a little bit of the best player, which conference is the best, or which league is the best.
Yeah, I
don't know, maybe not, because we get that also in the NBA, but the NBA, it's a joke as well. I feel like the only one that actually plays, we've had this conversation before, is Major League Baseball. Yeah. But it answers the question for you.
Yeah, which is better? Which thankfully the NL ended their losing streak this year, so I was happy about that. So now let's do an exercise. We did it last year. It's our NFL tier list. We're gonna place each team in one of the following categories. We must come to a consensus. That's kind of what I want to do here is make sure we are uniform in where we're putting the teams. And the categories we're going to sort them into: Super Bowl contenders, division winners, playoff teams, outside looking in, and then picking in the top 5 of the draft. So not necessarily win the Super Bowl, but contending for a berth in the Super Bowl. Who's going to win the division? But not really compete for a deep run in the postseason. Playoff teams who we think are just going to kind of make it there. But we don't think they're going to win the division. They have to get in as a wild card. Outside looking in, that's pretty self-explanatory, and then just the worst of the worst. So looking in at our top tier here, Super Bowl contenders. I go with the Bills, Bengals, Chiefs, Eagles, and 49ers. Those are my Super Bowl contenders. Those are the teams I could see hoisting the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year. I know you were talking about not being as high on the Bills. I think they're going to still be there. The Bengals, no reason to think. I know, there is, there's been a little bit of worry in Cincinnati because of the Joe Burrow injury. He's not going to miss significant time. So no reason to think they're not going to be there again. Obviously, the Chiefs is self-explanatory. The Eagles, I don't see a scenario where the Eagles don't at least get back to the NFC Championship game. There's really nobody else that contends with them. And I'm also a little bit – the team I'm willing to debate the Bills, but I'm also willing to debate the 49ers just because we saw it's one of those things where, like, what Brock Purdy did last year was awesome. It was amazing, really exciting to see. With a full offseason to prepare – will we see any sort of regression in year 2? Because the 49ers have said, we're all in. We traded Trey Lance. We got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. It's Brock Purdy's show now. I mean, I know they've got Sam Darnold behind him now too. But if you're going to Sam Darnold, things are not good in San Francisco.
No.
So yeah, those are my 5 teams: the Bills, Bengals, Chiefs, and Eagles and 49ers.
So I like that tier for you. The only change I have in that one is I do not have the Bills up there. I only have the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the 49ers. Look, it is a 4-team race, to be honest. Those 4 are the cream of the crop when it comes to the NFL right now. And there's no way around it. And I think you could even put the Chiefs and the Eagles just a step above that as well, just because of the talent we see for both of those teams. Young quarterbacks that are exciting, playmakers scattered all over the field, defenses that are amazing or could be amazing, especially on the Eagles side. But I'm just not as high on the Bills. As the season progressed last year, it just felt like they fell apart more and more and more. And I'm afraid that that's going to carry over to this year. It's one of those teams that we've talked about them so much. This team is a contender. This team is a contender. And constantly they falter. They fall flat. They just don't have, they're missing this one piece. And then they don't go out and address that piece. Oh, now they're missing this piece, and they don't go out and address this piece. It's just like eventually at some point that they've become stale. And they haven't really, in my mind, done much to change that. So for now, I'm bumping them out of my Super Bowl contenders, and I'm going with the Bengals, Chiefs, Eagles, and 49ers.
See, I think the argument that because I'm trying to decide whether I want to be more of a stand up a little bit more for the Bills, or whether I want to agree with you, because with on the one hand for the Bills you could say, well, they're the game against the there's going to be the Jets are going to be tougher obviously this year, so that could possibly bring them down a little bit. They could lose the division, which means their path to the Super Bowl might not be, not to say it was necessarily easy, but I mean because last year, well, after they beat the Dolphins, which the Dolphins were a team that did beat them in the regular season as well, and I know there some people would also contend like, hey, it was the Dolphins, but they were playing their 3rd string quarterback and still hung in against the Bills last year in the postseason. But also then the very next week they have to play the Bengals. But on the other hand, is this Bills team, we had this Bills team, is really all that much? I know that they kind of makes your point as well about not addressing some of their needs, but are they really that much different from a team that we were high on in years past? Because
the thing, though.
Because they lost games in the regular season to the Jets last year. I don't think either team is going to sweep that that matchup this year. I think they could potentially sweep the Patriots. They could potentially. I'm not who knows. Tua's health is obviously a big point of contention. The Bills could potentially sweep. They're a couple of plays away from sweeping the Dolphins last year too, and getting an extra win and possibly being the 1 seed in the AFC. So I don't think all that much has changed from the Bills to make me, not so much has changed from the Bills to make me say, okay, they're definitely not going to be in the mix to make the Super Bowl.
See, for me, it's we've been so high on them for so long. And it's the same story year after year after year after year. So it's kind of like fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you type thing. And I'm not dropping them completely out of the picture.
I know.
They're in the picture. They're like fringe of Super Bowl contenders and division winners. But I'm just bumping them down because look, the 4 teams I have up there in the Super Bowl contenders have been the 4 teams that have been in the Super Bowl over the last few years.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, you know what? I think the Bills are the team I was kind of the weakest on as far, so I don't have a problem bumping them down to the division winners. So those are the 4 teams we have. The 4 Super Bowl contending teams we have are the Bengals, Chiefs, Eagles, and 49ers, which means as we move to the division winners, We've got the now these are teams not necessarily who definitely will win the division, but who we think could win their division this season. I've got of course we've got the Bills there now. The Ravens, Jags, Titans, Vikings, Lions, Falcons, Saints, Panthers. Yes, that's 3 of the NFC South teams because I'm like, they could all theoretically win their division. Yeah, so they're in there kind of, that feels weird to put them there. Like we said earlier, a lot of people high on the Lions, but I also think the Vikings are not going to go away, especially, the weapons they have. I know Dalvin Cook is gone, but they have, and Adam Thielen are gone, but they add Jordan Addison. Justin Jefferson's still going to have a great year. Kirk Cousins, I watched quarterback, and I kind of like Kirk Cousins now. And so there's some things to be to enjoy there. Like we said earlier, AFC South is also a toss up between the Jags and the Titans. You could say that either way. I still think I lean Jaguars there. And then the Ravens and the Bengals. Of course, the Bengals are a tier higher, but the Ravens I think are also going to be in the mix to win the AFC North. So those are my division winning teams.
So mine's a little bit different. I have the Bills, the Ravens, the Jags, the Titans, the Vikings, the Lions, the Saints, the Jets, and the Steelers up there.
Okay.
I'm not ready to put the Falcons and the Panthers up there yet, just because that division is just so weak.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the Jets have a real strong opportunity. It felt like last year the thing that was holding them back was quarterback play, and now they've got that, and they've added really good weapons. That defense is going to be really good again. That team has the potential, in my opinion, to win the AFC East.
Getting this out of the way, I will agree that if we're bumping the Bills down, we also have to boost the Jets up. So I'm willing. I had them in my playoff teams because I was set on the Bills winning that division, but I'm also willing to bump the Jets up because we're saying it's more of a toss up. We're not as sold on the Bills. So I'm with you there.
And I am moving the Steelers up there just because that's going to be a tough team to beat. They've had some competition at running back, but still, you got Najee Harris at running back. You got Kenny Pickett at quarterback. George Pickens looks like he's about ready to go complete Megatron on everybody. That team has the potential to ruin another team's season. So I'm putting them up there in that category. But like I said, I'm bumping the Falcons and the Panthers down. I'm not sold on them. I think the Saints right now are the clear favorite in the NFC South. But otherwise, it's other teams that I mentioned, I'm putting up in the division winners.
I'll move the Steelers up too because I was honestly that was a team where I wasn't entirely sure where to put them. I wasn't super confident in saying they would be in the mix for the division, but I also thought they could potentially make the postseason. So I don't know when I did my playoff prediction, because of course you know me, I had to like pick my 7 playoff teams and then have a bracket in my head to determine who I thought was going to get to the AFC Championship, NFC Championship, and the Super Bowl. So I can't remember if they were in that part of the exercise of my brain, but I know I was kind of trying to decide. But even then, I don't know that I want to move the Browns up, but then if you're saying the Steelers, do we say the Browns too?
No, I don't even have the Browns in that. I have the Browns in the outside looking in.
Okay, well, more in a moment on that. But yeah, so I'm willing to move the Jets up, like we said earlier, the Steelers up. The team that I don't want to budge on because with the Falcons, you have I really am intrigued by the talent. I know we've been waiting for Kyle Pitts to break out for the longest time, and he's been okay in flashes, not okay in other flashes. But even then, you've got Drake London, you've got Bijan Robinson in the backfield. You've got some talent there. The reason why I'm willing to kind of listen to an argument of why not to have them up there in the division race is because of who their quarterback is. We don't know how Desmond Ridder will look. Their defense is supposed to be better this year as well. But the team I don't really want to budge on is maybe I just can't quit Frank Reich. Maybe that's what it is. But the Panthers. I think the Panthers. They've got. I mean, I think Bryce Young is going to be good. I think they put some good talent around him. Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen. I know that they're the other team's castaways, but like they've got a quarterback. They've got some solid talent around them.
I mean, they're cast.
I'm just saying they are
younger.
by virtue. I think
the Colts would love to have an Adam Thielen or a Miles.
I'm just saying by virtue of they were cast away from higher teams. Yeah, from tougher teams in the division or the conference. They've been cast away, but I still think that's a good cast of talent around them. It's. I mean, yes, Bijan Robinson and Drake London might technically be better, but also the quarterback for the Panthers is better. So, but I think I lean a little bit more that way. So I think it's the Panthers and the Saints. I mean, I also think the Falcons too. I'm willing to move them down, but I really think the Panthers are going to be in the mix.
Okay.
I mean, look, I got to convince you.
I'll give you the Falcons because I feel like that running game for the Falcons is going to be really, really good. And you add in the addition of Desmond Ridder, who is more of a mobile quarterback. I think you're going to see that emergence of Kyle Pitts actually having a solid quarterback throwing to him. I'll give you the Falcons. I'll keep the Falcons up in the division winners.
But see, they had a mobile quarterback last year, Mariota, and still.
Yeah, I mean, Mariota he hasn't been serviceable. The verdict is still out on Desmond Ridder because we haven't really seen him, but we know Mariota is what Mariota is. And he was kind of a stopgap last year to not have to start a rookie. It's kind of like what the Colts fans were expecting when Gardner Minshew was signed, that Gardner Minshew was going to be a stopgap until Anthony Richardson was ready to play.
So you're going Falcons, but you're not going Panthers. You're not budging on Panthers?
I'm not budging on Panthers just because there's some question marks on that defense. And I need to know that Bryce Young is going to be able to hold up for an entire NFL season.
Okay. All right. So we've got just to unmuddy the waters that may have been muddied. We have in division winners, we have the Ravens, Jaguars, Titans, Vikings, Lions. We've got the Falcons, Saints. We're moving the Jets up, and we're moving the Steelers up.
Yes.
Okay. Playoff teams. These are our playoff teams. I've got, excluding the teams we've already mentioned, the Dolphins, the Chargers. I've got the Browns. Mm-hmm. I've got the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Seahawks. Because I don't think there's going to be two teams from the AFC South or the NFC South. So basically, both of those are only going to get their division winner in, so that's why I don't have the Panthers there.
Got it.
So yeah, those are the playoff teams I have remaining.
Yeah, so I like that. The only change I think I would make, drop the Browns down to the outside looking in, and move the Broncos up to the playoff teams.
See,
or no, scratch that. I mean the Bears.
The Bears. I'm okay moving the Bears up. Where were they? What was the record last year? It's escaping me. I can't remember. It was like, well, they would have had to be worse than the Colts, so it would have had to been like, because they were the number one pick in the draft. So they were what?
No, 3-14.
No, they didn't trade for that. They
traded out of it. That's right.
Yeah. They were 3-14, right? So I think, yeah. So that means that Justin Fields is going to take a leap by 6 wins.
Yeah, but what they brought in some talent around him. I don't know.
I mean, I do think the Bears will be in the mix. Because this is what I did a lot of times. I kept looking back at who are their interconference matchups this year. It's the, let's see, it was the NFC North versus, they also play the AFC West. So they'll play the Chiefs. They'll play the Chargers. They'll play the Broncos.
Okay. All right, you know
plus
what?
games against their division. So I think that's why I was a little bit more hesitant on going with the
Got it.
Bears.
So I think for me, then I guess the only change I would make is dropping the Browns down to the outside looking in.
Here's the argument I would make for the Browns, because I think they were right there on the doorstep of the postseason last year, and I mean I'm not saying this is a disparaging comment at all, because I love me some Jacoby Brissett, but they were in the playoff mix because of Jacoby Brissett. They get a full season of Deshaun Watson. You've got Nick Chubb. I know Amari Cooper is like 150 years old, but he's still good. He's still there. I think the Browns can be in the mix for the postseason. I think they can be in the playoffs. I think when you stack them up against the other teams we have in the playoff category, I mean, because these are all the playoff teams are all teams we think can make it to the postseason, but also are question marks. We're not ready to say they can contend for their division. They're gonna get in by the hair of their chinny chin chin. It's gonna be now. I mean, I guess excluding the Cowboys, because that's just because they're not in the same. The Eagles are gonna win that division, but like the Giants, yes, the Giants should be in the postseason, but I think you can make a case either way that they can miss. Maybe what we saw from Daniel Jones was a fluke. Maybe they're out. I don't think they will be adding the likes of Darren Waller and having Saquon, that situation figured out. So that's why I have them in there. The Seahawks, they could take a step back with Geno, but I also think, they were in last year, and I don't the NFC is not super deep, so they can possibly make it back. That's why I'm going with the Browns, because they're going to have a full season of Deshaun Watson under their belt, and they're going to have an opportunity to. I think, like I said, I think they had 6 or 7 wins last year. A full season of Deshaun for me is worth at least 2 to 3 wins.
See, for me, the reason I don't have them in that category and I have them in the outside looking in is because of how good the top 3 teams are in that division. That is, to me, is what will keep them from making the playoffs or making a push for the playoffs for a wild card spot, because you have the Bengals, you have the Ravens, you have the Steelers. Those teams are, in my opinion, a lot better than the Browns right now. And so with that logic, that puts the Browns then down at the bottom of that division, which leaves them out of the playoff picture.
See, I think there's a chance
that's where I'm looking. That's how I'm viewing the Browns. I don't doubt that the Browns are going to be a good team this year. It's just their division is so deep and has got a lot of talent in it. It's going to be hard for them to overcome that. Unless for some reason the Ravens come out and just are a complete flop because of age and everything. I don't know, but that's the only thing I can see. And I mean, the Browns do have talent. They do. It's just I'm a little bit more confident in the talent of the Steelers, of the Ravens, and definitely of the Bengals. So that's why I have the Browns on the outside looking in. But they are one of those teams that they are right there on the edge of being in the playoff hunt.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you can't make it work in your head at all that they could potentially be in, and so one of those other teams would be out. That's all.
I guess the Steelers could be that team, even though I have them up in the division winners category.
Yeah, potentially. But so
okay. So I mean, yeah, okay. I'll keep the Browns there. It's just that when we get to these next 2 categories, I do have I have some changes there that I think are more reasonable than moving the Browns down to the outside looking in.
Okay, so we're sticking with our playoff teams as the Dolphins, Chargers, Browns, Cowboys, Giants, and Seahawks.
Yes.
Okay, so looking at the outside looking in, I've got the Patriots, Colts, Broncos, Bears, Packers. Those are the outside looking in, where I don't think they'll be in the top 5 of the draft, but I also don't think they'll be in the postseason.
So for me, outside looking in, I have the Pats, Broncos, Bears, Packers, Raiders and Rams. Like I said, I'm so basically there. I'm moving the Colts down and moving the Raiders and the Rams up. I'm more confident in the Raiders than a lot of other people are. I think they've got some stability. I mean, last year it was basic. We all knew Derek Carr was, he wasn't going to be a Raider much longer, and it was just kind of a transition year. Oh yeah, Derek Carr's now and with the Saints. So, but I think the Raiders don't have as much uncertainty in their locker room, and that's going to help them. I think believe it or not, I do think the ownership of Tom Brady with that organization is going to be helpful as well. And in the Rams, I mean, yeah, they're playing in a decently tough division. I just feel like the Rams have the talent there and have enough talent to stay out of the top 5. Doesn't mean they're not going to be picking in the top 10. Right. I just don't think they're going to be picking in the top 5.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Is like, because it's kind of a I don't want to say semantics argument when you're talking about just like, well, I mean, I don't have them in the top 5, but they might be picking 6th. Like that's kind of where you end up with a lot of these teams. I'm okay moving the Raiders up. I think that especially with the Josh Jacobs thing figured out, they could move up. I think I want to be a stickler on the Colts and the Rams. I think the Colts are going to be better than what people think. I think that I've seen a lot of people a little bit higher on them. I can't remember what you had them in your record prediction last week. What was that? I know mine was 6. I can't remember.
I think mine was 3 or 4. It was 4.
Right. So I mean, even then, even if we split the difference and go 5, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be in the top 5 of the draft, but I guess that means they'll be close. So I guess I'm willing to split the difference and say that they might fall back down into that picking in the top 5 category. But
look, for me, the Colts, the talent's there. I'm just worried that the locker room is going to be disrupted by the Jonathan Taylor drama.
That's a good point. Okay.
And that could end up dividing that locker room. And right now, with the Colts going into week 1, their starting running back is Evan Hall, which there is nothing wrong with that. I think Evan Hall is going to have a surprisingly good season and is going to be one of those players that everybody's going to go, man, I wish we would have drafted him. He was a sneaky good draft pick. And there's even an article that came out today. I forget where I saw it. It was just scrolling through Twitter that said it was the title was essentially Evan Hall and Anthony Richardson could make up a potential deadly duo. And I could see that along the way. But for me, with the Colts, the uncertainty at running back, 1, and just the drama that it's going to be causing. It's good. I mean, it's going to be a distraction to that locker room because all reporters are going to focus on until there is some sort of move made is about Jonathan Taylor. Everything's going to be about Jonathan Taylor, and that will eventually cause some breaks within the locker room because you're going to have guys that are going to be like for him holding out or doing what he's doing. And there's other guys who are like, just get back here and play. It's not about just you. Come back with this team. We need you. And that could eventually cause some division within the locker room, which when you have division in the locker room is when things kind of start going south.
Talked about intriguing divisions. That is not an intriguing division for the Colts. You know what? That's a very good point. I didn't really consider that. So I'm willing. And plus, we shouldn't debate super hard about the teams that aren't going to be in the postseason. But so yeah, I'm good with moving the Rams and Raiders up and moving the Colts down, which means our outside looking in is the Pats, Broncos, Bears, Packers, Rams, and Raiders. and are picking in the top 5 in the draft falls out as the Texans, Colts, Commanders, Buccaneers, and Cardinals. I don't think there's a whole lot.
That's 5.
Yeah, that is 5. Yeah, because I think the Commanders were a team that I think a lot of the other projections teams were a little higher on. I'm not sold with who they have at quarterback and the rest of that division.
And the fact that everybody's wanting them to trade Chase Young,
yeah,
look, yeah, that team.
And I love me some Baker Mayfield. I didn't want to put the Bucs there, but I think that's where they'll be. So yeah, that is our tier list. I hope you guys think that it's a good one, because I think we ended up in a pretty good place, and we'll check back maybe towards the end of the season, maybe in our Super Bowl wrap up, see where we were right and where we were wrong. So speaking of which, we'll kind of go quick here because I know we're already at the hour mark. Let's go ahead and get into our 2023 predictions. We're gonna give you our prediction for the AFC Championship game, our prediction for the NFC Championship game, our prediction for who we think is going to win the Super Bowl, who we think is going to win MVP, and who is going to win Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year. So quickly here, I'm going to go ahead and give my AFC and NFC Championship game. In the AFC Championship, I have the Bengals over the Chiefs. I almost went Bengals over the Bills, but I reversed it. I'm not super confident on another Bengals-Chiefs AFC Championship, but I also didn't want to bet against the Chiefs making it there again, because they've been there every year since Mahomes has been the quarterback. So, they've been there every year since 2018. It's kind of like with the Astros in baseball. They're going to make the ALCS until they don't. The Chiefs are going to make the AFC Championship until they don't. So it's going to be the Bengals over the Chiefs. A third year in a row of Bengals-Chiefs, but I mean, we saw the Cavaliers and Warriors for like 10 years. So it is possible to see that in sports. So Bengals over the Chiefs in the AFC. In the NFC Championship, let's get weird, man. I've got the Eagles over the Lions in the NFC Championship game. I have the Lions making a deep run, but running out of gas in the conference championship game. I think the way I had it shake out is that they were going to win the division and I think beat the Panthers, I think, in the first round, and then win their second round. I can't remember who it was against. I'm running on fumes. I had like a 3.5 hour draft last night. So I'm kind of like, my brain is mush. I can't exactly remember what my teams were, but I got the Lions going deep, but ultimately falling to the Eagles, giving us a Bengals-Eagles Super Bowl.
So for me, AFC Championship, I have the Chiefs over the Bengals. Look, the Chiefs are the class of the AFC until proven otherwise, in my opinion. And they just make the right moves, it seems like. And yeah, I mean, their running back, I found it super funny. Somebody described their running back situation. And it's like, oh yeah, they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's okay. But then, man, they've got Isaiah Pacheco, and he just seems like he runs like he's angry at the ground. And it's just like, okay, that's funny. So, but I mean, I'm going with the Chiefs to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl again. NFC, I actually have a rematch of last year's NFC Championship of the Eagles and the 49ers. This year the 49ers will have a healthy Brock Purdy. I think this game will be a much closer game than it was last year, but ultimately I do think the Eagles are going to make the return. The 49ers defense is good, but they lost, I don't think it's as good as the Eagles defense. That Eagles defense is going to be really good. Their weapons are just outstanding. So I have a rematch of last year's Super Bowl of the Eagles and the Chiefs.
So in Super Bowl 58, I said it was going to be the Bengals against the Eagles, and I have the Bengals winning the Super Bowl over the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. The Eagles have a 14% chance of winning the Super Bowl according to the ESPN Power Index, but that's no fun. Give me the Bengals, who are at 9%. This is one of the Super Bowls where I truly would not care about the outcome. I'd be happy if because I want Jalen Hurts to get a ring, and I want Joe Burrow to get a ring. So this would be ideal for me. I would love it. I've noticed in my old age that I don't really care so much. I mean, I obviously have my favorite teams, but I also root for like players as well, like individuals. And I'm like, you know what? I would love to see Jalen Hurts get a ring. I would love to see Joe Burrow get a ring. I think that would be a really exciting Super Bowl. So give me the Bengals over the Eagles in Super Bowl 58.
So in my rematch, I think it's going to be a really good game as well. But I am going at this point in time with the Eagles. Like I said, their defense is just, it's going to be something else. And I think with their playmakers and everything as well, that is a team that is going to be a very, very tough team to beat this year. So I think the Eagles get their revenge and come home as Super Bowl champions.
So, in regards to MVP, who we think is going to win the MVP this season, I've got, I've got Joe Burrow as my MVP. He finished fourth in MVP voting last season. It doesn't look like he's on track to miss any significant time, if at all, with his calf injury. And the Bengals played just 3 games against teams that finished in the top 10 in pass defense last season. I think the Bengals are going to be at the top of that division that I say is going to be really deep, which means he's going to have a lot of great moments to kind of go out there and prove him and make his case for MVP. So I've got Joe Burrow taking home most valuable player this season.
So for me, my MVP, I'm actually going to go with Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers. I don't know. I just feel like he's going to have this. His stats have always been up on top of the league here over the past couple seasons. And I just think this is going to be the year finally that people truly notice it. And with the success that I could see the Chargers having this year, that only vaults him higher up into that category. So I think when it's all said and done, Justin Herbert, not Jake Herbert, Justin Herbert is going to win the MVP this year.
It's going to be a close race between Jake and Justin Herbert. That sibling rivalry is going to be at an all-time high. Offensive and defensive rookie of the year. For me, offensive rookie of the year, I know I went Jordan Addison in our draft recap, and if I want to make some good cash, I would place that bet. Addison is plus 1,600 to win offensive rookie of the year, so that'd be a pretty cool bet. I actually might make that bet. But I am going with Bryce Young because I like what the Panthers have around him. I mentioned earlier, I know that I was a little soft. I let you walk all over me and make me give up on the Panthers, but like outside of our tier list, I am going to go with the Panthers. I do like what they're doing. I think they can win the division. I do like what they have around them, and around Bryce Young and Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen. This is a Panthers team that was in the hunt for the NFC South last season. The NFC South and the NFC gets the NFC North and the AFC South. So in a weak division, they very well could be in the mix again. And if Young gets them to the dance, I think there's a good chance he does end up being the offensive rookie of the year. So yeah, they get to play the AFC South, which doesn't have a lot of scary teams. They get to play the NFC North, which yes has some really good teams and some good defenses, but they also can. I think the Panthers could beat the Vikings. I think the Panthers with Bryce Young could beat the Lions. It's not like there's good teams in the NFC North, but there's not teams that were like, oh yeah, no doubt this. If it was the Panthers versus the Vikings would win 10 out of 10 times. So I do think the Panthers will have a good year, and I think Bryce Young will do well enough to earn himself Offensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I am going to stick with my post-draft pick, and that is Jalen Carter. I've heard a lot of great things about what he's doing in camp. The Eagles were one of the best teams ever in terms of sacks last season. Their defensive line was great, and there's no reason to think they won't be great again. An Eagles fan, shout out Russ, sent me a TikTok about Darius Slay just raving about how good Jalen Carter was doing, even in comparison to some of their veterans, in camp. So I'm high on Jalen Carter. I think he's going to have a good year, and he's going to be your defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, he's going to be leading the way for that Philadelphia Bulldogs defense.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, looking at the offensive rookie of the year, I think the writing is on the wall. It's going to be a quarterback. Just because when 3 of your top 4 picks are quarterbacks and how high everybody's been on the quarterbacks of this class, it's definitely going to be a quarterback. I'm going to go ahead and say this. Houston Texans fans, you're either going to be really excited about this or this could spoil. Well, no. Houston Texans fans will be excited about this. Arizona Cardinal fans will not. I am going with CJ Stroud as my offensive rookie of the year. I just think he's going to have I don't know. I can't really say why. I just have a gut feeling that the top three quarterbacks taken, I just have a feeling he's going to have a better season overall. And because of that, because everybody was so high on all the top three quarterbacks of this draft, that he will ultimately win offensive rookie of the year. And then I'm going with Will Anderson Jr. of the Houston Texans to bring home defensive rookie of the year. From what you're hearing from Houston is that Will Anderson is very hard to block. And especially when you look at the rest of this division, the Colts offensive line has some questions. The Tennessee Titans line has some questions. I mean, probably the most solid one is the Jacksonville Jaguars. But if he's able to make some noise against the Jaguars and get to Trevor Lawrence frequently, I think Will Anderson has a chance to really, really shine. I love the pick of Jalen Carter. It's just that entire defense is going to be so good, whereas Will Anderson is going to be playing on a defense that's not all that good, and he is going to shine bright. Obviously, the Texans traded a lot away to be able to trade back up 2-3 after picking 2 to land Will Anderson. So Houston Texans, you have a bright future, but I'm sorry, Arizona Cardinals. I feel like because of that, that's going to prevent you from having the number 1 and number 2 overall picks in next year's NFL draft.
Well, that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out with us. Remember, you can like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. If you're watching us right now on YouTube, go over to the TikTok channel. You guys have been killing us. We're so close to getting to 3,000 followers over there. We're like 200 away or something like that. So go over there, hit the follow button for some content over there. If you're on the TikTok channel or see us there, go over to the YouTube channel. If you're listening to us on the podcast app, go on the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, ring the bell. You guys have been really showing the love to all of our season previews that we've been putting out, and that's been really cool. Also, quick shout out to Bryson Luter, our 3C Media Week 2 MVP for the high school football season. That we released that today. Go look at some of the highlights from that game because it was insane between Lawrence Central and Westfield this week. And remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can follow me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Next week, we'll be back for episode 234 of the Crash Course Podcast. But until then, have a good one, everybody.